Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey folks, today is Tuesday, Today is Tuesday. Glad to be with you, January 31st, 2023. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, live from Richmond, Virginia. Police report obtained by the New York Times of the officers in Memphis. It shows you exactly what they put on their report, which is contradicted by the body cam footage. We'll tell you exactly what was in that report, and again, show you how the cops lied on that report. The NAACP will join us as well. Also, the investigation continues into the death of Tyre Nichols. There was a news conference today in Memphis. People still want answers in his death. Also, on today's show, on Capitol Hill, debate police reform. Senator Tim Scott is claiming Democrat Dick Durbin is blocking his police bill. But this is the same Tim Scott who blocked the George Floyd Justice Act. Also, folks, a ruling in a Confederate monument in Tuskegee. We'll tell you about that, how the Daughters of the Confederacy, they have lost there. That and more on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. It's time to bring the funk. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, folks, Roland Martin here, broadcasting live from Richmond, Virginia. So much attention remains on Memphis, Tennessee, regarding the death of Tyre Nichols. Today, the New York Times reported the actual police report that was filed by the cops. We're going to detail that after our next break, but it goes to show you that the cops how they lie on police reports, and they are contradicted by what happens in the body camera footage. Now, the family of Tyre Nichols, they are preparing for his funeral. That will be taking place there in Memphis. Vice President Kamala Harris is going to be attending his funeral as well. Activists and others in Memphis continue to demand answers from the Memphis Police Department, not just in the case of Tyre Nichols, but in other examples of police violence as well. And so even though Memphis has moved expeditiously in terms of firing these officers, you've had 3 fire officials who were also fired as well. Folks still want answers because they say they have not gotten enough answers out of Memphis PD and the City Hall as it relates to Tyre Nichols and this Scorpion unit. And so we continue to focus on this. And there's more that is being uncovered as each day progresses. Also, folks are also asking FedEx, where Tyre Nichols worked, why aren't they doing more as well? Yes, they released a statement on Friday with regards to his death, but why aren't they pushing city officials and demanding more accountability? We'll talk about that as well, how the business community can really do their part to step up and hold police departments and cities accountable as well. And so much to unpack when it comes to what's going on in Memphis. The Memphis NAACP is going to be joining us after the break. We've got our panel as well. And so we've got a number of folks still breaking down what is happening with regards to the death of Tyre Nichols. And so much to uncover and to unpack as well. I'm going to take a quick short break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. We'll tell you what the New York Times reported in that police file as well. Folks, don't forget to follow us in what we do. If you want to make sure to see our content where we're not being shadow banned by these digital platforms, download our Black Star Network app. It's available on an Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And of course, you can also assist us in our efforts. When you join our Bring the Funk fan club, your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. And so please do so by sending your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. I'll be right back.
Most most people think that these television shows that tell stories about who we are as black men, and then they paint these monolithic portraits of us, they think that they're being painted by white people. And I gotta tell you, there are a whole bunch of black folk that are the creators, the head writers, the directors of all of these shows, and that are still painting us as monoliths. The people don't really want to have this conversation.
No, they don't.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, I'm sure you've heard that saying that the only thing guaranteed is death and taxes. The truth is that the wealthy get wealthier by understanding tax strategy. And that's exactly the conversation that we're going to have on the next Get Wealthy, where you're going to learn wealth hacks that help you turn your wages into wealth.
Taxes is one of the largest expenses you ever have. You really got to know how to manage that thing and get that under control so that you can build wealth.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
You are watching Roland Martin, and I'm on his show today. And it's, what, huh? We should have some cue cards.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy, Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
All right, folks, welcome back. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Joining me right now is Van Turner. He is he's an attorney, state legal redress chair, and the president of the Memphis branch of the NAACP. My panel, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA, Randy Bryant, diversity and inclusion strategist, speaker, trainer, and writer. Michael Brown, former chair of DNC Finance Committee. Van, I want to start with you. The New York Times, first of all, the city of Memphis, they of course have been pushing it as if they are completely on top of this. But the reality is there are some issues here. There's some issues that are still here. And the New York Times, they have discovered or they've gotten their hands on the police report, and it shows you what happens when cops say one thing and do another. There was a news conference being held today. Folks are still demanding answers. What is the Memphis NAACP? What are you demanding of this police department as well as this city council regarding the death of Tyre Nichols?
We're demanding action and continued action. I think we're up to 7 officers now, Roland. And so we started out with the 5 police officers, which we all saw. They were spread out across the media. They were terminated. They were indicted. But after that, Officer Hemphill pops in, and he's a white officer. And then we have a 7th officer, and we've yet to learn the identity of that particular officer. We've had 3 emergency medical technician officers who have been terminated and relieved of duty, 2 sheriff deputies. So this is an ongoing investigation. We demand continued transparency and action. All involved should be terminated and brought to justice.
And again, the New York Times is reporting, based upon the police report that they filed, they were trying to cover up this violent offense. These 6 disgraced officers, what they did was they said he was pulled over for reckless driving at a high speed, saying that Nichols was irate and sweating profusely when he got out of his vehicle and resisted arrest. The report mentions the use of pepper spray and the taser had no effect on Nichols, that he became violent. They also stated that Nichols started to fight with officers and at one point grabbed the gun of one of the detectives, claiming Emmett Martin III, who assaulted Nichols, was the victim in the report. Well, we all know that's a flat-out lie. And this again, right. This is what happens when these cops lie on police reports. And thank goodness we have video that contradicts what they said. Otherwise, their account is what people will go with.
That's absolutely right. And essentially what we have here is a fabrication which is taking place, a cover-up. And fortunately, because of the video footage, we were able to have the true facts be revealed and for these officers to be brought to justice. Had we just relied on the officer's report, these officers would still be walking the streets. Had we not had that video, they still would have been allowed to continue to do what they've been doing and what they've done and what they did to Tyre Nichols. So we have to have better procedures in place, better oversight. This unit has been disbanded, and so we have to plot out a path going forward. But as you can see, the status quo has not worked. What we've done has not been what the community deserves or wants. The death of Tyre Nichols could have been prevented if we passed the George Floyd Reform Act. And what the family is asking for now is a bill out of our Tennessee legislature in the name of Tyre Nichols, which would make it mandatory to intervene, to render aid, and to do all those things that these officers did not do on the night that they killed and murdered Tyre Nichols.
Obviously, the city council is going to have to do more. And so what do you want to see from city officials? And are you satisfied with what you heard from the mayor? Because our understanding, she created this unit after she came from Atlanta, where they had similar problems with a similar unit.
Right. So that's absolutely right. I think it was called the Red Dog Squad in Atlanta. And so I'm satisfied where we are right now because there's been no attempt to cover this up, and there's been no, on behalf of Chief Davis, not the officers, and there's been no attempt to suspend the officers, and we'll wait and see how the investigation goes. She asked for an immediate termination. The DA put forth an immediate indictment up to murder 2. And so those are to be things going forward that every police precinct should do. I think even Attorney Crump said so. But there's still a lot more to take place, a lot more to do. And so we need to see how this goes forward and if the transparency continues and if the openness continues. We are watching, we are demanding that city council act, we're demanding more of our legislators, and quite frankly, we're demanding more of ourselves. We shouldn't just be on the sideline. We should be demanding justice. We should be raising hell because Tyre Nichols died on our watch. We shouldn't have to be here another 6 months from now, another year from now, talking about another black or brown individual who has lost their life to law enforcement officers who have gone rogue. This is the time that we have to act, and we call on all our elected officials and stakeholders to join us as we seek justice for Tyre. We fight for the George Floyd Reform Act. We fight for the Tyre Nichols Reform Act. It's simply time is up. We got to do it, and we got to do it now.
All right, Van Turner, we certainly appreciate you joining us. Thanks a bunch. Keep us abreast of what happens next.
Thank you.
All right, folks, going to go to a break. We come back. I'll talk with my panel about this. Again, cops continue to lie on police reports, and as an official document, it happens over and over and over again, and the only way they get busted if the video contradicts them. And so we'll talk to them about that when we come back. Folks, don't forget to vote for Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network for the NAACP Image Award. We have been nominated, and so what you can do is go to vote.naacpimageawards.net. Go to the Outstanding News and Information category. Look for Roland Martin Unfiltered. You can vote for us. You can only use one email to vote. So if you got several emails, you can vote several times. So please vote for us and make that happen. And of course, voting ends on February 10th, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not.
The truth is you cannot change what you will not acknowledge.
Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook. That's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
What's up, y'all? I'm Will Packer.
I'm Chrisette Michelle.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, let's bring our panel in. Mustafa Santiago Ali, Randy Bryant, Michael Brown. Glad to have all three of you here. Mustafa, I want to start with you. I mean, we have talked about this ad nauseum. What happens when these officers lie on these police reports? And were it not for the video, frankly, the public and the prosecutors and police departments, they always go with these cops' version of events. I mean, they simply just lied on the report.
Yeah, we see it time and time again. You know, the problems that we have is that there's very little accountability for officers when they do lie on reports. or on the facts of what happened in a situation. And you know me, Roland, I like facts and I like research. So, you know, back in 2020, Professor Phil Stenson, who's over there at Bowling Green University, is a criminologist, he actually tracked arrest cases for a number of years and found out of 10,000 cases that over 6% of those had police officers that were giving false statements and false reports. And 25% of those actually were dealing with police violence. So we find that, you know, these incidents continue to happen, and the facts are showing us that they're happening. Now, he also shared in his research that he felt that the numbers were higher, but based upon the time that he had to actually investigate this, that's where it is. So we're talking about a huge amount of cases that are out there that we know police officers are lying.
And that really what jumps out here, Randy. I mean, they will sit here and make up stuff on the police reports. They will just lie, and all too often they aren't held accountable. And I've long said, if they lie on a police report, then they should be automatically fired.
They should absolutely be automatically fired. And to build off of what Mustafa's just said, there was a study in 2020 that of cases where people were wrongfully convicted, the major reason that people are wrongfully convicted is due to police misconduct. 35% due to police misconduct. And if you look at the prosecutors, it goes up to 54%. So what's interesting is that there is an unspoken system of just a power being abused to put our Black and brown people behind bars unfairly, or, of course, to injure them or kill them, as we've just seen. You know, you see all the people that they've recently arrested or fired by the police department, and they all worked. We didn't see on the camera where they're having conversations about the cover-up, because the cover-up was already understood. They clearly had seen this play out before, and that's the scary part.
Michael, it happens over and over and over. And I don't recall seeing the Fraternal Order Police calling out their own when they lie on police reports. It might be a slap on the wrist, but the only time we really know when they lie is when there's evidence that contradicts it. And so Mustafa laid it out there. The number of times when they likely lie on people is astounding. And there are individuals who go to jail, who are charged, who are convicted based upon police officers who lie.
Absolutely. And first, let me say, Roland, you look fabulous in purple.
Well, first of all, alphas can wear any color, and we can show y'all how to wear it.
I'm just saying you look good in purple. I'm
just letting you know, alphas can wear any color.
I tell you know what, Roland, you laid it out. I mean, everybody says, I co-sign with everything everybody said. And it's just so interesting and troubling, frankly, that over the last several years, whether it's body cam footage, whether it's poll footage, whether it's folks with cell phones on the side of the street, it still is not making the difference where it's stopping. It doesn't matter that there's video. It may matter bringing people to justice, which is great. Great for the families, great for the community, great for our country. But it's not deterring officers from still doing bad acts, because they must feel that there's protection and either qualified immunity, or it doesn't really matter, my pension is going to be intact. They can't sue me personally. So they feel this level of protection, whether they have a camera on, whether somebody's on the side of the street with a camera, and whether there's a poll cam. So the more troubling thing is not just obviously that people are getting beat down, in some cases dying, but the fact that officers don't seem to care that there's video footage until, frankly, they're in a courtroom and heading off to jail.
And that right there is what is so troubling, Mustafa, and that is the excuses that are offered. And yesterday, DeLacy Davis talked about how there has to be mass transformation. And I just simply believe the only way we are to confront this The only way is you got to get rid of qualified immunity. When they know that their butts are on the line, that's when they're going to stop. And when you start snatching pensions.
Yes.
Most definitely. It is always about the dollars that unfortunately are what drive people to do the right thing. We'll probably talk about this later, but of course there are pieces of legislation that have been introduced before to address this. And if we don't build real accountability into the system, then we're going to continue to see folks doing all kinds of things. If police officers who are standing on the sidelines watching this happen don't feel that there is any accountability for them also, then the dehumanization, the brutalization inside of our communities will continue. And so we have an opportunity in this moment, just like we did when George Floyd was killed and a number of other people both killed and brutalized, to change this. The question will become if people will continue to put pressure and if we will force our politicians to do the right thing.
It's always the money, Randy. And look, as long as these cops know, hey, we can commit wrongdoing, and 99.9% of the time we can get away with it. And if anything happens, fine, the city or the city pay a settlement. We just keep going. You have to deal with their pensions. And then there are many cases where they get busted, and then if they served a while, I'll retire before I'm actually disciplined by the department.
Correct. Or they go to another precinct. What's interesting to me are all the police officers where they make this big announcement where they were fired, and then we find out that a year later they're working in another town. Also, I was thinking the police department, in my opinion, if you look at the history of policing, they're functioning exactly as they were designed. So we need an entire dismantlement of the police, of policing, because they are functioning as they were designed. I had a conversation with someone, and I said, in all my years in life, I've never called the police because I've never seen them as a solution. I always was fearful that they would make an issue more or worse as a Black person in America. And I believe that there's probably a lot of people out there that have the same sentiment.
The thing that the other day, Whoopi Goldberg said, maybe the only time people are going to care in this country is when white people are being brutalized, and the Fox News people just lost their minds, Michael. But it's true. The reality is, in this country, I remember during the Civil Rights Movement, they'll care about some college kids being killed if they're white, not if they're Black. And so people got mad at Whoopi. She was just stating the truth.
And absolutely. And then there are a couple double standards, obviously. That's clearly one. But also it's interesting, some of the reaction amongst folks when they heard that the officers were Black or African-American. Obviously, the first gentleman was white, who originally pulled him out of his car and tased him and then said, "Stomp his ass." But it shouldn't matter the color of the officers. But what matters is the color of the victims. That always seems to be consistent. And as long as that continues, as you just mentioned, until the demographic changes of the victims, it's going to be one of those things. Mr. Nichols' mom was on one of the news shows, and she had mentioned that a week or two before her son's incident, that there was a white young man who spit in a police officer's face, and the police officer politely arrested him and took him downtown to do whatever he was going to do about the assault. But she was like, "Why did my son get that treatment?" And so there clearly is a double standard. And you got to assume, whether it was what was it called, the Red Dogs, I think, or the Scorpion Unit, they're not patrolling white neighborhoods. You better believe that. So I'm glad the chief disbanded that unit, but there's still obviously, whether it's federal legislation, local legislation, until elected officials have the courage to go up against the police unions in those jurisdictions, because no one wants to get up for a re-election and be considered soft on crime and not supporting the police. And the police unions know that. And that's why we're in this dilemma.
And again, this is spurring more conversation and hopefully lawmakers to do something when it comes to the issue. of police reform. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill, where you have Senator Tim Scott whining and complaining, saying Democrat Dick Durbin is stopping his police reform bill moving forward. Yet this is the same Tim Scott who lied on Democrats when he shut down negotiations over the George Floyd Justice Act. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about how Governor Ron DeSantis, he is specifically trying to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of Florida's colleges and universities. We told y'all it was not just about critical race theory, folks. And Bethune-Cookman had suspended one of the football players who spoke out against what was happening in the program. We'll tell you about that as well. And speaking of that, we'll be in Daytona Beach on Friday, Hope Fellowship Church, for our community town hall, dealing with the issues at Bethune-Cookman. Doors open at 5 o'clock. We'll be live from 6 to 8. We want to see you there. We certainly invite all students, faculty, staff, alumni, and the community there for that town hall. It's taking place Friday. We'll be live in Daytona Beach, Florida, this Friday for the Bethune-Cookman Community Town Hall. Also, folks, don't forget, download our Black Start Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Join our Brina Funk fan club. Send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores everywhere. Of course, Target, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can download a copy on Audible. We'll be right back.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. An hour of living history with Dr. Richard Mariba Kelsey, thinker, builder, author, and one of the most important and impactful elders in the African American community. He reflects on his full and rich life and shares his incomparable wisdom about our past, present, and future.
African genius is saying that my uncle was a genius, my brother was a genius, my neighbor was a genius. I think we ought to drill that in ourselves and move ahead rather than believing that I got it.
That's next on the Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
This is Judge Mathis.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Mac Wiles, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
As I said, folks, Senator Tim Scott is whining and complaining that Democrats are not moving forward with his 2020 bill. It is called the Just and Unifying Solutions to Invigorate Communities Everywhere Act. I don't know what the hell that name is. And so he said that it would end the use of police chokeholds and create a duty for officers to intervene when they see a colleague using excessive force. And he is openly calling out the leader of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Democrat Senator Dick Durbin, saying that he is blocking it. But I recall, Randy, that the same Senator Tim Scott shut down the George Floyd Justice Act negotiations that passed the House, negotiating in the Senate, because he claimed that Democrats wanted to have provisions in the bill that would defund the police. Now, the reason Tim Scott is full of it is because a year earlier, in Tim Scott's bill. He actually said that if cities did not pass certain laws, they could not qualify for the federal funding. I got the receipts. I have text messaged Tim Scott 4 or 5 times. He never responded to that. So he's really crying wolf right now.
I honestly don't know what else to say, but yes, he's crying wolf. He's saying one thing and doing another. He has never been for real police reform. Never, even when it comes down to looking at the George Floyd Act, he's gone against that. There's nothing that has shown that he cares about reforming policing, and if anything, supports the way it is today. So I don't understand what this latest trick is. He's just talking.
And that's really it there, Michael. I mean, look, he has no credibility with me on this. You had a number of police unions who were on board with the George Floyd Justice Act, and he used this letter from the head of the sheriff's organization in South Carolina, who was opposed to it, as the reason why he stopped negotiating. And it was like, dude, come on. And so I'm sorry. I don't want to hear the whining of Tim Scott about Senator Dick Durbin, when in fact it was Senator Tim Scott who chose to scuttle the George Floyd negotiations. And, certainly moreover, he obviously he's playing politics. He's thinking about running for president, and he wants to be able to go into urban or certainly of color neighborhoods, whether it's Latino or African-American neighborhoods, and be able to say, hey, look, I tried to move this bill forward. They blocked it. They wouldn't let me get a vote on it or even a hearing. But then on the other hand, he wants to play to the MAGA crowd. So he's obviously playing his political game. But it's one of those things where when assuming he runs for president, I have no idea whether he will or not. Everybody's running after this MAGA crowd, which is interesting to me because it used to be when Trump was, I guess, if he was ever at a peak, was what, maybe, in the high 30s. Now it's in the high 20s and dwindling even more. So I don't know why everyone's running to this racist MAGA group to figure out that that's the ticket to get to be president, at least nominee in the Republican Party. So, he's playing politics. He's going to continue to play it. But it's certainly interesting if he's campaigning, if he's going to say the George Act, because he changed the name. Why didn't he just say, I'm just using the old title? So I find that interesting. He's going to continue to play politics, and we'll obviously see what happens with that. Look, he absolutely is trying to run for president in 2024, and he wants to act as if he is moving forward on this. But the reality is his bill was weak, and Democrats wanted more in the bill. The House version, the George Floyd Justice Act, was much stronger than his bill, to be frank. And so it's not, and he wants to act like, it's all about chokeholds and the next cop standing by. Dude, stop it. Mustafa, it goes way beyond that, but he wants to offer this minimal bill to act as if somehow he's doing something significant to confront police brutality in America. Yeah. I mean, his bill was watered down at best. Tim Scott knows what he's doing. The other panelists have already sort of highlighted that. Tim Scott reminds me so much of Supreme Court Justice, who I don't even say his name anymore, but he's the only African-American male who's there who never says anything. Tim Scott also, if you follow Tim Scott, and when all these other senators are standing up and talking about important issues, Tim Scott is often very, very silent. Now, he did speak a few times about this particular issue. Here's the other part of the equation that you got to point out. It goes back to what we talked about before. Qualified immunity is important, and it has to be a part of any serious police reforming bill. And if you're not willing to fully embrace that, then you are just feeding folks a bunch of foolishness. So Tim Scott knows what time it is, and he just refuses to do what's necessary and what's right. And there's no way that he's going to get folks to vote for him if he's considering running for president or being part of vice president or one day leading the Senate,
People are not going to take you serious because in no time did you ever stand up and do what's necessary. In times, what did Dr. King say? Something about, being willing to stand up in tough times and do what's right. So we all know who Tim Scott is, and we don't have high expectations for him.
I just, again, listening to him, and here's the deal. First of all, let's play this piece of video of Tim Scott whining, and I'm explaining to y'all again what he did and how he won't answer to what he also did. Go ahead.
Yesterday on ABC's This Week, Senator Durbin asked Senator Booker and I to come back to the table and start talking about policing in America. I never left the table, Mr. President, but it was Senator Durbin who filibustered my Justice Act. It was Senator Durbin who called the effort to make de-escalation training more available a token piece of legislation. It was indeed the senator from Illinois who said, as aspects of my Justice Act, talked about the importance of the duty to intervene, a token piece of legislation. In that legislation, Mr. President, we had more resources for more training because we want only the best wearing the badge in every location, in every municipality, in every county, in every state in this great nation. But politics too often gets in the way of doing what every American knows is common sense. And here we find ourselves again, Mr. President, having the same conversation with no action having happened so far. Now, Mr. President, I don't speak on this floor very often, but this is my 10th speech on policing in America in 8 years. The 10th time I've asked for something that will make our officers better and safer and make our communities better and safer. Another time I have asked for more resources.
Forgive me if I take a nap while he's talking. He's sitting here, y'all. This is the 10th time I've been on the floor. So let me take y'all back to what happened. Senator Tim Scott went on Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan, and said that Democrats, it was a bridge too far because Democrats were trying to defund the police. Well, a year earlier, Michael Harriot wrote a piece about Senator Tim Scott's bill. He quoted the deputy chief of staff for Senator Tim Scott in the bill, stating that the incentive to get them to do the right thing was to withhold federal funding if they don't pass bills or laws to make changes. So Senator Tim Scott was sitting here texting me and telling me the language in the bill, y'all, and telling me, read it. It's right there. Telling me where to look. Telling me where to go. And all that stuff. This was, here we go. Give me 1 second. I'm going to show y'all exactly when it was. This was September 28, 2021. I got receipts. He says read sections 113, 114, 202, 204, 363, 382, and more. It's pretty clear. He says, read it for yourself. Tell me what you think. I can have my team send it to you. Quote, I don't BS. That's Senator Tim Scott. sent me an email. I then said, if Dems want to defund the cops by cutting funds, please explain why you previously wanted to do the same. How can you say it's a bridge too far when what you now say is bad is what your own deputy chief of staff says was needed? Here's what Michael Harriet published today. That was September 30th. Seriously, what's the difference? And what's the difference when the Trump executive order that you supported did the exact same thing? Nope. Y'all can see, no response. October 27th. Senator, it's been almost a month since I sent the last text to you asking you to clarify your statement on Face the Nation with what you did last year. I've also sent emails to your staff that have gone unanswered. Can you or your staff answer exactly what I asked last month? No response. January 19th. Senator Tim Scott, it's been 2.5 months since I asked you to explain the difference between what you accused Dems of doing on the Floyd bill and what you proposed last year. Why have you and your staff gone silent on your own proposal? What's the difference? No response. May 25th. I have numerous family members on my show now who are at the White House. They are angry because they say you haven't reached out to any of them since the bill fell apart. They say they want to hear from you, both from Jean's sister, Terrence Crutcher's sister, Amir Locke's family. They're not happy. No response. So please tell me, Senator Scott, how in the hell you actually care about this when you didn't even talk to the family members and you won't even answer the question about your own bill? I got the receipts. We'll be right back.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, I'm sure you've heard that saying that the only thing guaranteed is death and taxes. The truth is that the wealthy get wealthier by understanding tax strategy. And that's exactly the conversation that we're going to have on the next Get Wealthy, where you're going to learn wealth hacks that help you turn your wages into wealth.
Taxes is one of the largest expenses you ever have. You really got to know how to manage that thing and get that under control so that you can build wealth.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Bill Duke.
This is Diala Riddle, and you're watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered. Stay woke.
All right, did we not tell y'all that Republicans are attacking anything dealing with race, equity, diversity, inclusion, multiculturalism, affirmative action? It is the basis of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. It wasn't critical race theory. I kept warning everybody. So guess what today? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced he wants to dismantle every statewide diversity, equity, and inclusion program. He also wants to review tenure for professors as well. He continues his culture wars drama. All right, so I ain't going to play all of this. I want to hear this scrub talking the whole time. But listen to what this idiot had to say today in Florida.
And I think you have the dominant view, which I think is not the right view, but the dominant view is the use of higher education under this view is to impose ideological conformity, to try to promote political activism, and that's what a university should be. That's not what we believe is appropriate in the state of Florida. Instead, we need our higher education system to focus on promoting academic excellence, the pursuit of truth, and to give students the foundation so that they can think for themselves. Now, if you see the former approach is dominant throughout the country, particularly with respect to academia, you see it manifested in a lot of different ways, but more recently you see it manifested in things like DEI bureaucracies. And this is basically a component of the administration within universities that are imposing a political agenda, sometimes things like critical race theory. These bureaucracies are hostile to academic freedom, and really they constitute a drain on resources and end up contributing, certainly around the country, to higher costs as these bureaucracies metastasize. You will see flowing from that mandatory things like mandatory DEI training, and that is really imposing an agenda on people. You know, we passed legislation last year, the Stop Woke Act, which basically said that, you know, if you're an employee, particularly of like private business, you have a right to opt out of that. They can't force that on you. That's litigating it. You know, this is what happens every time. You know, we usually win these on appeal. So that's going to happen, and that's important. They also will do things like require diversity statements, is what they call it, but that's basically like making people take a political oath. And in fact, that has been applied across the country, so that if a candidate for a position at a university says, you know, my view is to treat everyone the same, regardless of the color of their skin, that they get points off for saying that you have to embrace things like critical theory, like the idea of implicit bias and all those other things, and that's just not appropriate. So that has been something that has been happening. So what we did earlier this year, right after the inauguration,
All right, blah, 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 blah. Joining us now is Dodie Joseph, representative there in Florida. Representative Joseph, glad to have you on the show. What we're dealing with here is a dictator. This is a man who is appealing to white fear. He is pushing the race. He is pushing the racial buttons. He wants to run for president. And so what he is doing is absolutely targeting white conservative voters, and he is attacking anything that deals with the issue of diversity, equity, inclusion, race, you name it. This is the white supremacist, white nationalist agenda that he is leading.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me. And when you think about Governor DeSantis, he is white privilege personified. And all of these attacks that you see him leeching out, whether it's on the education system and employment, anything related to DEI, anything related to race and advancing racial progress, or at least protecting race discrimination, he has taken to attack. Like, really, all of this legislation is white fragility in legislative form. It's the very definition of what we consider structural racism. So, and I don't want to give the governor too much credit, because a lot of this stuff, a lot of this foolishness, which we're seeing not just in Florida, but throughout the nation, is the brainchild of this political hack named Christopher Rufo, who happens to be one of the people that he, Governor DeSantis, appointed to serve on the new board of this new college that they are dismantling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, Rufo was the one who was attacking critical race theory, and he said in one of his tweets, they want to place it under everything under the banner of critical race theory. They want to attach woke to everything. And I kept telling people, don't try to narrow this thing down. The attack on books, the attack on what can be read. They are trying to impose a white nationalist view. They are scared to death of the demographic changes, and they want to continue to stoke white fear.
And you are absolutely right with that observation. I'll pull out a couple of things that he mentioned in the clip that you shared. He talked about ideological conformity and the dominant approach. And so let me unpackage that. So he went to Yale, I went to Yale. He talked about this being the dominant view. The dominant view is we believe that racism is wrong. So what does that mean? If we don't know our history, we're doomed to repeat it. So we see a systematic attack of him to try to make sure that we don't know our history so he can continue to do things like when you saw him fly immigrants over to Martha's Vineyard, that is a repeat and a rehash of a racist tactic of reverse freedom rides, right? But if you don't know that history, you're not going to make those connections. Knowing our history is part of the battle. I would posit that doing something is the other part of the battle and making sure that there are consequences when you violate these laws. So that three-pronged approach to fixing it and reaching real equity is what he's attacking, whether he realizes it or not. So doing something about it, that's the part where DEI comes into place. The reason we have DEI is to educate employers or whomever about the systems and processes they have in place that do have the effect of discriminating against people. And I'm telling you this as a civil rights lawyer, as somebody who used to litigate employment discrimination class actions all around the United States, some of which went up to the Supreme Court. That is what that law is based on. But what you have is people like the governor, the Pharaoh of Florida, and these little political hacks trying to undo all of the progress that we've made throughout the civil rights movement, not just in education, but also in employment. So I'm flagging both of those.
Oh, absolutely. And again, what he's also doing is virtue signaling to these white conservatives in corporate America. Look, the lawsuit going before the Supreme Court dealing with Harvard and Yale admissions, they have been tailoring their lawsuits to the thinking of Justice Alito, Justice Clarence Thomas. They want to get rid of affirmative action in everything. And they absolutely want to target corporate America. They are targeting publicly traded companies. That's what they're doing. They want to get rid of anything dealing with diversity. And I keep telling people, stop falling for the okie doke. They are trying to go after everything. They are scared to death of 2043. They are trying to hold on to white power as long as they can. And too many of these mainstream media outlets don't want to cover this story. Look, I've had black hosts tell me that they're white producers, like literally say, hey, Roland, I'd love to have you on, but my white producers are scared of your book title because I'm calling it what it is. And I say, I talk about them in the book because they're part of the problem. They don't want to deal with what's happening right now. And that's why people aren't getting the full story.
You are absolutely right. And I want to put this in the larger context, whether you're talking about in media, whether you're talking about in government, whether you're talking about in education, we the people of the United States need to fight for our freedoms, right? The founding fathers and observers of our delicate American democracy said we have a democracy if we can keep it. These people are not focused on democracy. They're not focused on justice. They're not focused on anything good. They're all about division. They're all about going back in time rather than progressing forward. So when he talks about ideological conformity being the dominant approach, what that tells you is he felt some kind of way when he was in school. He felt singled out as the however you want to call him, kid, right? Because he believed somehow that slavery was a good thing. So when he was teaching history, he was trying to tell people that slavery was a good thing. Well, if you have half a brain, you know that slavery was not a good thing, right? Unless you're operating under this white supremacist paradigm, which is devoid of actual reality and centers on things where some people get ahead and some people get left behind. And I want to call this entire nation at attention to let you know that we are at a crossroads. We either decide to go back to the days that DeSantis wants to take us to, or we go forward into the promised land that King talked about. You find people like these political hacks trying to use King's words to use things like colorblind and weaponize it to put a cloak around what they're doing to bring us backwards when they're doing these things. Something can be factually neutral, but the impact of it is discrimination. And that's what I see with a lot of this legislation. So we need to have all hands on deck in pushing back on this. And he's counting on people being distracted by these culture wars so that they forget that everything that actually matters to people in Florida, whether it's property insurances that are going through the roof, putting money on in your pockets and on your table, making sure you have a living wage, that you can take care of your family with dignity, all of those things, they're doing everything to take that backwards. And they want to distract you with this stuff so that you don't see what they're doing. It's all the okie doke. They want to do all this crazy stuff and make sure that they're harming everybody. Black, white, purple, it doesn't matter. So I need people to remember that the reason he's doing these things is distract you from other stuff that he's letting loose. Today, they let out something about permitless carry. So they just want, in a time where gun violence is through the roof, they want to make sure that they can have permitless carry. You have no background check in having your gun. This is absurd, but this is what we're dealing with in Florida.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I've been warning folks. That's why I wrote the book. And too often, folks don't really want to understand what's going on here. Representative Joseph Michelle, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go to, how much time? We're going to break? All right, I'm going to do this here. I'm going to go to a break. I'm going to come back. We're going to talk about this here because I've been warning y'all, and I've been warning y'all. Trust me, they're going after everything. If you have not read my book, White Fear, you need to be prepared for what is about to happen. And I ain't talking about the next year. I'm talking about the next 50 years. Folks, get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at all these bookstores, Target, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Download the audio version on Audible. We'll be right back.
Most people think that these television shows that tell stories about who we are as black men, and then they paint these monolithic portraits of us. They think that they're being painted by white people. And I got to tell you, there are a whole bunch of black folk that are the creators, the head writers, the directors of all of these shows, and that are still painting us as monoliths. The people don't really want to have this conversation.
No, they don't.
I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Arnaz Jake. Black TV does matter, dang it.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
Stay woke.
It's December 28th. The Garland, Texas native is 5 feet 3 inches tall, weighs 200 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. 15-year-old, maybe with a Hispanic male by the name of Julian. Gianna has multiple medical conditions and needs treatment. Her family is concerned for her well-being. If you have any information about Gianna Griffin, please call the Garland, Texas Police Department at 972-485-4813, 972-485-4813. Go back to that previous topic here. Randy, I want to go to you. again, it is white America's, white conservative America's attacks on these issues. But then you got people like Bill Maher, so-called libertarian. You watch his show and his constant whining and complaining about critical race theory, 1619 Project, how the Democrats keep focusing on diversity. Again, and when I said in my book, I'm like, hey, folks, y'all need to stop acting like this is white conservatives. It's some white liberals, some white progressives who also have white fear, Randy.
At the end of the day, most white people want to remain in power. This is a power move. If we are honest about the history of this country, we are 400 years at a minimum behind white people, right? And what we've all been taught is that we can make it, we can overcome if we work hard enough and we get education. But what DeSantis is doing is making it where it's going to be almost impossible for a diverse set of people, anybody that considers themselves a minority, because they're not about to be, it makes it very difficult for us to get the same education, have the same opportunities. It's expensive, as we know, to get an education. So universities have always tried to create equity, always tried to create opportunities for those who don't have 4 generations of people who went to college and 4 generations of wealth to be able to pay for college, to also be able to participate in the learning process and to participate in the American dream. And what DeSantis is saying, I want to cut out that pathway, which would mean that the only people who are going to get educated are the people who have been getting educated historically. What's going to be interesting is that we focus on race. Of course, that is my primary focus. But and I think DeSantis gets people riled up because of this white fear. He gets them riled up and saying, yes, let's just go for it. But they have to understand that diversity programs have helped white women more than anybody else. Okay, diversity programs, when he talks about getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, that's the LGBTQIA community. That's talking about people that have learning differences. So it's not just people of color. So it'll be interesting if people were to pay attention and not act with hatred, because we know that they have no problems voting against us. I believe that that it would scare a lot of people. But yeah, this is a whole power play. It's completely a power play. And it's interesting to me that he,
But the thing, Michael, but the thing, Michael, is we've got to make clear to these white women, y'all sitting on y'all asses. The reality is, it's black people. Let me be real clear. Let me be as clear as possible. Ain't nobody fighting harder when it comes to DEI, when it comes to multiculturalism, when it comes to affirmative action, than black people. Guess who's way behind us? White women. Guess who's way behind us? Latinos. Guess who's way behind us? LGBTQIA. And so the reality is, black people, we know what this thing looks like. And so the other folks have been riding on our coattails for a long time. They about to be in for a rude ass awakening when these contracts start getting snapped up. And it's like, oh my goodness, what happened? Because you're selling your ass.
And I mean, clearly, Roland, you're absolutely correct. And part of the more fundamental problem is what the perception or definition from, and you're right, it's not just the right, but from many Americans, is that American history is not made up of African American history, Latino American history, Asian American history, Native American history, except in a couple pages of a chapter. And when you deny the history of the country, it puts the next whatever generation or the generations after that in a situation where, I heard about slavery, but I heard some big time rapper said that slavery was a choice. And there's nowhere to go to obviously see a different side or the correct factual side. Or will you see the governor of Florida saying, you know what, I don't think we should teach that in an AP class. So there's some fundamental issues that cause whether, in education, that's going to make this extremely challenging over the next decades. That's why, this makeup of this Supreme Court is, I wish we, when I say we, the left, would focus, the right focuses so much on the courts. We really didn't. Barack Obama, for example, didn't even do a good job. He left so many vacancies because he was looking for a perfect judge. When the right is in the White House, they just want as many young, conservative judges as possible. They could care less if they're perfect.
Indeed. Mustafa.
Public Enemy told us in 1990 exactly what was going on, Fear of a Black Planet. So if you listen to that iconic album, it actually speaks about many of the things that we're focusing on today. DeSantis was talking about a couple of things there. They used to come for our communities with hoods and robes, and now they come in three-piece suits. So he talked about truth. He's not interested in truth because the truth is making sure the fullness of history is told. He talked about speaking for themselves. So we continue to try and make sure that we're telling our story so the fullness of what has happened, both the tragedies and the triumphs in America, can become a reality. And here's a tool that we should be using, which is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. So we had a conversation about education. Title VI covers that. It covers housing. It covers a number of the different things. So we should be pulling our federal funds back from the state of Florida if he continues to go down this path.
Look, there are people who are, again, fighting the good fight. Attorneys Fred Gray and Fred Gray Jr. down in Tuskegee, Alabama, they are ones who are doing so. They have secured a great victory there when it comes to the removing of a monument, a Confederate monument there. Of course, in Alabama, they do what they do when it comes to these Confederate monuments. But let me tell you about what they were successful at doing there, folks. And that is an Alabama judge has ruled that a controversial Confederate monument that's been in the center of a square of Tuskegee for nearly 115 years, it can be cleared to be removed. Fred Gray Jr. and his brother Stanley, they worked on the case. They join us right now. I'm glad to have you here, Fred Jr. and Stanley. And so, again, Alabama's been trying to keep these monuments up in these majority Black cities. Of course, Montgomery got fined for taking down a street named after your dad. But tell us about this case here, how y'all were able to beat these Confederates.
Yes, and thank you for having us on. The strategy was, instead of attacking the monument or the Confederate statue, we went purely legal. And what we did is we filed a complaint, which is a complaint asking the judge to quiet the title. In other words, judge, declare to us who is the owner of the Tuskegee Square. Because one thing for sure is whomever owns the square itself or the property itself owns and controls everything that is within that particular area. So back in September 2021, we filed an action for declaratory action, meaning declare the rights of the parties. Number 2, quiet title, in other words, determine to whom the title belongs. Number 3 was another cause of action. And then we came back and filed a trespass action against the Daughters of the Confederacy. And this was something that really was in the works for several years, but the time was right, and that's when we filed.
And what's next? Are they trying to appeal?
Well, I'll tell you this. At this point, no notice of appeal has been filed, but bear in mind it's only been a few days. So that possibility exists, but if that occurs, then we'll be ready to fight that as well.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, look, Alabama changed the law saying no Confederate monuments can be taken down without legislature approval. Then put the fine in place. And so Birmingham said, fine, we'll just pay the fine. And people actually contributed money. And so that was the only recourse there. Are there other monuments that y'all are going after in Alabama?
Well, Roland, at this point, this is our main concern. Our main concern is representing the Macon County Commission. And this monument that has towered over African Americans in the city of Tuskegee and Macon County for 114 years. And Roland, this case is really very interesting, I think maybe a little different than the others, because in 1906, you had a county commission, an all-white county commission, that deeded or gave, not deeded, gave property to the Tuskegee chapter of the Daughters of Confederacy. But there was no deed until 1949. 1949, they come up with a deed and said, okay, we're going to give you this property, but it can only be used as a park for white people, and you have to build a Confederate memorial there. And so it was just really interesting as we peel back the onion, so to speak, as we found out more and more about this case. And the truth of the matter is, you and I, Roland, can't have property without a deed. I mean, the daughters have been able to have the downtown city square from 1906. They built the monument in 1909, and that's just how it's been until recently. So we're just excited about the judge's opinion.
Boy, that white privilege is something else, ain't it? Gentlemen, I appreciate it. Great job. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This right here, Mustafa, is why you got to have your legal warriors on the battlefield in addition to your street warriors.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's why we got to support our HBCUs that have law schools, and black and brown folks are going to law schools at other ones. We got to make sure that we're supporting them because our country, you know, utilizes the law in many of the instances of things that happen in our lives. And the fight continues because we still got over, 2,000 Confederate memorials that still exist outside of our country. So we've got to have all hands on deck. And, of course, many of the legal folks are going to lead the way, along with activists.
All right. Real quick, Randy, about 20 seconds. Go.
I just wonder why they want to keep a monument like that up when Tuskegee's 93% black. It seems as if they want to remind us of where we've been.
You just answered your question. That's why.
Right, as a reminder.
That's what they want, Michael. They want to keep white supremacy monuments in place to lord over black people. Michael, 15 seconds.
All right, very quick. The other challenge in the future is going to be you're going to have some people coming into the workplace, into society that are complete racism denialism. And then you're going to have some people coming from different states that were educated on it. And then there's more conflict. And it's going to be the same thing in a cycle because you got some people who've been taught differently than others.
Yeah, but especially when you have people like Ron DeSantis who wants to get rid of any issue of race being taught. All right, folks, can we come back? Angelique Miles joined us talking about getting fit, a new you in 2023. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We'll Black Star Net.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Teresa Griffin.
Hi, my name is LaToya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
you've been reaching out to us because there are a lot of people who are 45 and 50 over who say, you know what, I really need to get motivated when it comes to working out. Some people say, you know what, hey, that's it. I can't really change things. We've had Donald Richardson Jr., we've had Cheryl Grant, who's trying to become Miss Olympia now that she's 61. And so I reached out to Angelique Miles. If you look at her on Instagram, she's often showcasing not just how she looked, but also in terms of her workouts and the different things, the different products that she uses as well. Angelique, how you doing?
Here at all.
Can't hear me at all.
Okay, Angelique froze. All right, is she back?
No, she's there.
Hello.
All right, there we go. So how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to have you here. One of the things I was looking when I was looking at your Instagram page, and you talk about being over 50. You talk about
legacy.
What keeps you focused, what keeps you motivated, and so many people. Again, I get emails from them. We look at the comments in the chat room. They're always talking about, okay, where do I start? Where do I begin? Because some just have simply just given up. And say, you know what, I can't get that body I used to have, or it's just way too much work. What do you say to that person who is just frustrated with that?
I say start slow. Start by walking, something as simple as walking, or something as simple as riding a bike, or just parking farther away from the store to, just get active. It doesn't mean you have to be in the gym 5 days a week or 7 days a week. Just get active, but start.
And so when you say get active, again, somebody hears, just start walking. And so we've had other people say, like, yeah, it really is that particular process.
Yes.
Just start walking, but also really begin to consume more water as well, and making that a regular part of your life.
That too, but a fitness journey starts in the mind, so that's where you start first. You start by saying, I want this, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what it takes to meet whatever goal that is.
So for you, how long you've been on this fitness journey? Were you always like this, or did you start later in life?
I started later in life. I mean, I dabbled when I was younger, but later in life, as my body started changing and my job changed, just a lot of life changes, I started focusing on it more. But particularly because I was getting older and my body was changing and hormones and things like that. So it just became very important to me. It's a priority for me.
And that's the thing right there, because again, a lot of people, they just assume that, oh, this person, they've been working out since they were in their teens, in their 20s. But we've had a lot of folks who said, no, they didn't really start until they were late 30s or really early to mid 40s, and really started getting focused on their physical self.
Yes. I mean, it depends on what that is for you. For some people, it's after they have children. For me, it was, like I said, my body was changing. I was gaining weight unexpectedly. I couldn't eat the same things I was eating. I had to become more active if I wanted to look and feel the way I wanted to.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Questions for our panel. I guess I'll start with Randy. Randy, did you put those Cheetos up?
I eat Cheetos sometimes.
I have.
Go ahead.
I have to be honest, Angelique, I have been a fan of yours probably since I've been on Instagram. I followed you very early. And I think your message is so powerful right now, particularly because you found exercising as a way to deal with life-changing, almost like depression, right? Like you had worked in music publishing, and that job left, and so you started working out. And I believe one of the things that holds us back now trying to work out and get in shape is that there's so much going on around us that it almost seems overwhelming to work out. But working out for you, fitness with you, was a way to help to pull you out of a bad situation or where you weren't feeling great. Can you comment about that?
Oh, yes. I was a music publishing executive before I'm doing what I'm doing now. And it was a very high-profile job. I signed people like Missy and Timbaland and Little Kim, Busta Rhymes. Part of that job was my identity. So when I lost it, when I lost that career, I kind of didn't know who I was. I was trying to figure that out. And the only thing I could control was getting up and going to the gym every day. Like, I didn't have to depend on a phone call back, an email back from, it was the one thing I could control. So that's what I did every day. And it did help me get out of a deep and dark place. Absolutely.
I find your story so inspiring, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Randy, and I appreciate you following me all this time. I really do.
Michael. Michael, you muted?
I am. Keep up the good work, and I appreciate you taking my question. I received a tip from someone. When I walk my dog, he has a tendency to smell everything. So if I want to take him on a nice long walk, the problem is, again, he stops and smells everything, so my heart rate never gets up. So the tip I received was a friend of mine told me to walk down the middle of the street. That way the smells aren't the same. You can't really, stop every 10 seconds. So is that tip accurate?
You know what? I don't have a dog, so I would not know that. But I think that sounds good. Whatever makes you do it, do it. But I don't know about dog smells and stuff like that, so I can't.
But it's interesting because, I mean, when
that person doesn't like Michael.
Oh, right, correct. Because when we're walking on the sidewalk, obviously all the grasses are there, and obviously dogs have gone past this place. So he wants to stop and smell. Hence,
it makes sense to me.
Why he gave me the tip to walk down the middle of the street where the grasses aren't and bushes and all that kind of stuff.
It makes sense to me.
Okay. Mustafa.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back to humans. You had mentioned early on that it all begins with the mind. So we know folks make New Year's resolutions. We make all these commitments to ourselves. For the folks who work with you or who follow you, what are 2 or 3 of the things that really help folks to live up to that commitment of that it starts in the mind?
You just have to make a clear decision to do it. I find that setting a goal helps. For me, I signed up for a 5K race at the beginning of my fitness journey because that made me learn how to run. Whatever that is for you, but you have to go through with it. You can't just think about it because so many people just watch other people work out and say, I can't do that. You just have to actually do it. And don't try to do too much at one time. Like, start slowly and don't burn yourself out. But it absolutely starts in the mind, but you have to do it.
Well, I think that again, but there are people out there who is easier said than done, Angelique. And I think the way to get them there is to really say, folks, you're not going to lose 30 pounds in the next week. And so if you simply start somewhere, if you say, you know what, man, I'm not sitting there. Look, I can't walk on that treadmill on an elevation of 10. Fine. Walk on the treadmill flat. Just start there. And I think, again, that's one thing when I'm talking to people, I don't care what it is. I'm like, yo, you just got to start somewhere. But you can't just stay status quo right now.
Exactly. You can't give up. You can't let yourself go. You can't give up. And it could be as simple as don't drink soda. Stop, cut back on soda, cut back on sugary drinks, cut back on white bread and white potatoes. It's as simple. It's all the little things come together and help.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So for the people out there who are so frustrated. My whole deal is just start once and actually sit there and write down if you drink soda now. Just start writing down how many sodas do you drink per day and then per week, and then say, all right, you can't give it up. Okay, cut back once a day, once a week, or whatever, and then begin to go from there. But again, but you have to start somewhere. You can't just keep going on and on the way you have been. If folks want to reach out to you, where do they find you?
I didn't hear that last part.
I said, if folks want to reach out to you, where do they find you?
They find me on Instagram at Angelique Miles and on TikTok at Angelique Miles 8. All
right. Well, Angelique, I certainly appreciate it. I got folks texting me. They were like, "Okay, Roland, how old is she?" And I think you posted what 50s? Was it 56?
56. I'll be 57 this year. 56. Yes.
All right, 57 this year. So there you go. So I knew I was right there. Well, look, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, take care. All right, folks, gotta go to the break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm BB Winans.
Hi, I'm Kim Burrell.
Hi, I'm Carl Payne.
Hey, everybody, this is Sherry Shepherd. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, and while he's doing Unfiltered, I'm practicing the wobble.
Folks, the family of Atiana Jefferson, they suffered another loss. Jefferson's sister, Amber Carr, died from congestive heart failure. In 2019, Atiana was fatally shot and killed in her home by a Fort Worth police officer, Aaron Dean. Now, of course, Amber attended part of her sister's murder trial last month before being readmitted to the hospital. Dean was found guilty and sentenced to prison. Since Atiana's death, the family has endured one tragedy after another. Her father, Marquise Jefferson, died 2 weeks after her funeral, and her mother, Yolanda Carr, who also has had congestive heart failure, died a few weeks later in January 2020. So certainly our condolences to the Jefferson family. Let's go to Colorado, where prosecutors have dropped the charges against a Black Army veteran who says 3 Colorado Springs officers beat him during a traffic stop in October. Dalvin Gatson says officers viciously beat him after he was pulled over on October 9th. Body cam video shows multiple officers punching and kicking Gatson once he was pulled over, which caused damage to his eye and ruptured his eardrum. Gatson was initially charged with 2 counts of second-degree assault on a police officer, resisting arrest, obstructing a peace officer, driving under the influence, and driving without license plates. Gatson entered a guilty plea for improperly displaying the license plates on his car and paid a $15 fine. All the other charges were dismissed. His attorney, Harry Daniels, released the following statement. By dropping the charges, the district attorney has made it clear that these officers had no reason to detain Mr. Gatson for a DUI investigation, much less beat him mercilessly and then smile for the cameras as he lay on the ground bleeding. In other words, this decision means that their actions weren't just excessive, they were unlawful. Chief Adrian Vasquez says that officers Kobe J. Hickman, Matthew Anderson, and Christopher K. Hummel did nothing wrong. But the reality is that they brutally beat Dalvin Gatson for a $15 fine, and they should be investigated, arrested, and prosecuted. Failing to do so puts lives at risk. Just ask Tyre Nichols' family. A federal lawsuit alleging Colorado Springs officers violated Dalvin's Fourth Amendment rights by using excessive force has been filed. This is what we talk about here, Mustafa. Here you got the police chief saying, oh, did nothing wrong. Seriously? You did all of that for what ended up being a $15 fine?
You know, they continue to dehumanize us, and by dehumanizing us, it allows them in their minds and in many instances, sometimes in the courts, to justify the brutalization that continues to happen to black men and women, and sometimes brown men and women. So, you know, this is a case where the Department of Justice has to make sure that they're leaning in, doing their own investigation of both the police department that's there, their leadership, and the actions of these police officers. And we have to continue to keep a spotlight on it to make sure that we are pushing to make sure that justice actually happens.
I just, again, here's a perfect example here, Randy. This man viciously beaten. And again, traffic stop. Over and over and over again, what is the most consistent thing we see in these police brutality cases? Basic traffic stops.
I believe that people are being stopped specifically to be these police officers' punching bags. I think the traffic stop is an afterthought. I don't believe they're even, well, it's showing that they're not even stopping them for a reason, that for a real valid reason. And so we need to deal with the issue of certain cops going into the profession. I believe that has some serious issues and some serious hatred against brown and black people.
Michael.
Yeah, pretty much co-sign on both what Mustafa and Randy just said. It's just, you know, it's sad. It's you know, it's not going to stop. It's just not. Whether you have a body cam on, whether the video cameras, we just, until the laws change severely, not Senator Tim Scott's law, but a real law that really matters.
How about walking while black? That is, a cop pulls a black man over. He was being confronted by 2 cops. Why? His tattoo sleeve. In Burbank, when he asked the female officer why he was being stopped, the woman said that it was because of the tattoo sleeve on his arm, and that people who usually walk in that area are not tattooed like that. The officer then apologized and refused to answer his questions when he complained about her response and reasoning. Brandy, why is she still a cop?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Immediately, she needs to be fired. Immediately. We don't need to wait until a woman who has shown that she has clear prejudice and bias hurts somebody. She needs to be gone. But she won't, because we know we can people.
I mean, you stop the brother because tattoos, and then say, "Oh, people in this area, they don't wear tattoos."
Roland, 30% of Americans, 30% of Americans have a tattoo. It's not even an unusual thing anymore. So we know why he was stopped. We know why she harassed him.
Yep.
It's very clear.
Yeah, we know. And this is the thing, Mustafa, that we talk about. If you are the police chief, you should be calling someone in and saying, how in the hell are you stopping somebody over a damn tattoo?
Exactly. It goes to leadership. Leadership should be very clear about, one, following the law, following the procedures of that department. So if the department has a procedure that says we're going to pull over everybody got a tattoo, then pull over, all kinds of different folks, which we know that's not the case. So here's what you do. And if DeMario was here, he would also share with you, one, make sure you go out and get yourself a good attorney. And then two, make sure you're also safe in that situation, because we know how they can escalate. So again, hit them in the pockets. If these cities and these departments want to continue to have these types of actions go on, then folks just sue them.
Well, I absolutely agree, Michael, with the idea of suing them. But the problem is when they pull you over for a minor traffic violation that results in a $15 fine, you got your ass whooped. The only reason, look, the tattoo could have escalated into something else as well, and that's the problem. We simply can't even live black, and when it's something so basic, it might escalate into a death.
Yeah, until we obviously been talking about the laws and the like. Until the laws change, in the interim, why not? Why can't these police chiefs? And I understand the collective bargaining agreements. I get it, but these police chiefs to send a strong deterrent message that I don't care what the police union does. If they sue me, they sue me. Me being the police chief or the police department, I'm taking action and removing bad officers from the force. So while the laws are going through the political process, which is obviously going to take a while with this House of Representatives, why not just start canning bad police officers? And then maybe other people will see it as a deterrent and be like, well, I don't want to get fired. Yeah, we got to go through the whole lawsuit process, but in the meantime, I don't have a job. So maybe that's one of the tactics, because she clearly needs to be relieved of duty.
Well, look, I agree. I agree. But the bottom line is we see what happens. Let me do this story out of Kentucky here, folks. A former Louisville, Kentucky police officer pled guilty to federal charges of using excessive force, but is not going to spend any time in jail. Katie Cruz admitted to shooting a protester with a pepper ball while standing on private property, not posing a threat to Cruz or others. She pleaded guilty to one misdemeanor count of using unreasonable force during her plea hearing. Cruz was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $5,000 fine. She is no longer an officer with the Louisville Metro Police Department and has forfeited her Kentucky law enforcement certification. This was an attack on protesters there. Thank goodness she's no longer on the police force. But again, this is what folks have to deal with all the time in this country, Randy.
I was thinking, as we wait for these laws to change, we talk about the arc of justice and how slow it can be. I really do appreciate shows what you're doing, Roland, and what I see people every day doing. We have to take this in our own hands, as I think that we have, and highlight when these stories happen. You don't see these stories on mainstream America. It's very rare that we hear about this misuse of force, this abuse of force. And so when we are out and we see things happening, I just really appreciate that people are recording it. And you see people on these social media platforms letting the public know. So at least there's some public shame and some public pressure. And Roland, by you showing these incidents on your show, it definitely puts some pressure on these police forces. And so until we can get some official laws changed, I believe that we should continue to highlight and call out the bad apples.
Well, look, we got to keep pressing this. We got to keep pushing this because this happens over and over and over again all across this country, folks. And so it's just ridiculous when you have these cops, because they got a badge and a gun, they figure they can stop you for any reason whatsoever, and you have to comply. Michael, Randy, Mustafa, we certainly appreciate you joining us on today's show, being on the panel. Thank you so very much. Folks, tomorrow we'll talk about Bethune-Cookman. Why have they suspended one of the outspoken football players? We're going to break it down tomorrow. And don't forget, we're in Daytona Beach on Friday for our community town hall dealing with Bethune-Cookman University and their issues, taking place at Hope Fellowship Church. Doors open at 5 p.m. We're live 6 to 8 p.m. Everyone is welcome, open to the public. Let's pack the joint out and let's make this thing happen. All right, folks, don't forget, download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, and get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores everywhere, Amazon, as well as download on Audible as well. Folks, I'll see you tomorrow back in D.C. Holla!
Folks, Black is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.